Hi, this is Todd Malicote, the SEO faculty for MarketMotive.com and online marketing consultant at StuntDouble.com. I'm here to talk to you about penalties, filters, and bannings, understanding when to submit a reconsideration request. We're going to look at the differences between penalties, filters, and bannings, when to file a reconsideration request, do's and don'ts of that request, and a couple sample requests. So if you've got yourself into the situation of needing to do a reconsideration request and you're suffering from a penalty, filter, or banning, chances are you or someone you've worked with is very aggressive with your SEO, which is not always a bad thing. But if you cross that line and suffered one of these things, it can be very detrimental to your traffic. So you need to know the recourse, how to identify the problem, and how to fix the problem and come up with a solution. So firstly, we need to know the difference between penalties, filters, and bannings because these words are thrown around a lot. So a penalty can be both algorithmic or manual. Penguin penalty or penguin filter there's a line between both of them, and the penguin filter, you only drop a few spots on multiple terms, 5 to 10 spots. The penguin penalty, you probably drop off the map like 100 spots for everything on your website, and you lose 50% or more of your search traffic. Now, both of those are algorithmic. The penguin penalty is not a manual one, so that doesn't require a re-inclusion request. Even if you lost over 50% of your traffic, it's still an algorithmic penalty, and therefore you don't need a re-inclusion request. You need the disavow tool, and you need to clean up your backlink profile. So a penalty is a very serious offense. Not quite as serious as a banning. People always say my site got banned. 99% of this time, sites don't get banned unless you're a Grand Slam black hat spammer. According to Matt Cutts, you're not banned. Your site might be out of the index for a short term. It's happened to JCPenney and to BMW and to Colgate and some other big brands, but they didn't get banned. Even for very egregious behavior, they still only suffered a manual penalty of 30 to 60 days. They did the re-inclusion request, they begged for forgiveness, and they got back into the index. Well, a filter is the most common, a duplicate content filter, a negative filter for too much anchor text. A filter occurs when you send negative signals to the search engines about your website based on your behavior, based on the things on your site, hidden anchor text or hidden text, these sorts of things. And these don't require a re-inclusion request. You just need to fix these most times, and you'll discover that it was changed the same way that they discovered it happened in the first place. So a few known penalties: the negative 950 penalty, negative 30 and 40 penalty. The sandbox or trust box was kind of a penalty of sorts when it came out first. Some past filters: duplicate content filter, supplemental index filter. Trust rank turned into kind of a filter. If your page loads slow, you can incur a filter. Keyword stuffing, meta tag stuffing, low click-through rate, all of these are filters of sorts. You can find some more of these at Debated Filters and Penalties. The link below by Barry Schwartz is a really good article on some of the different types of filters and penalties. There's a few other consolidated articles on all the different types of filters and penalties. We're not going to get into all of those here. If you incurred one of these, you know about this. A lot of people know about penguin penalties and filters because it happened to a lot of people. Penguin specifically came from what I call a history of stinking linking thinking. And you can hear more about this in the disavow tool section because that's more associated with Penguin. You're probably going to need the disavow tool if you incurred one of these stinking linking thinking penalties from a Penguin penalty or filter. So in order to know what is bad linking, check out the Google Webmaster Quality Guidelines. This is where they're going to refer you to if you do a re-inclusion request and it's not, and your site isn't up to terms. So it's good to be aware of these terms to begin with. This is what a Penguin penalty is going to look like. Like I said, you're going to know this if it happened to you. It's not a manual action, and therefore you can't do a reconsideration request for this one. It's an anchor text filter or a site-wide penalty depending on the severity of it. You could have dropped 100 spots and been hit on a lot of keywords and traffic's down, but mainly it comes from sending these negative offsite signals. So in this case, with Penguin, you're going to do the disavow. So see the video on disavow. I recorded both of these at the same time to kind of break out the two ideas here. When you want to disavow would be if you got a bad link warning, if you got a manual link penalty, if you had negative SEO to your site, if one of your competitors did bad linking to your site intentionally to tank your site. These are the times that you're going to want to do the disavow. So check out that video, disavows within Webmaster Central. It's just a way to say these links aren't mine, or somebody did some linking in the past that was poor linking. So in those cases, see disavow tool. With all things Penguin, disavow is the way you want to go. For other violations, for other problems, that's when you're going to want to do the re-inclusion request. If you have multiple problems, maybe you had duplicate content and had somebody aggregating your content and you were doing some bad linking, who knows what the problems were, but if you had multiple problems, this is when you want to consider doing a re-inclusion request. Consider being the word here. If you have malware issues, if you somehow had malware installed on your website by someone else, there's a separate process for that, but you can find some of that information by doing a search on reconsideration requests, and you'll have that little, this site may harm your computer. There's a process for that as well, a little bit independent of just doing a reconsideration request. Reconsideration request is if you had multiple problems, multiple violations. So make sure to fix those problems first. This is what the form looks like. You're going to fill this out. You're going to do a reconsideration request if your site got penalized manually. If it wasn't manually, you're going to get something back like this. And I know because I've done this myself with a site that was hit by Penguin penalty. And it was a penalty, but it was algorithmic. And it says, "Dear site owner, my site removed for privacy purposes. We reviewed your site, and the web spam team found that there's no reason for re-inclusion. It was all algorithmic. This wasn't a manual action. There's lots of other things at play here." So it didn't help us in this case, unfortunately, but sometimes it can help. So the do's for a reconsideration request. Make sure you submit one detailed, concise request. Within the Webmaster Central help videos, they say this specifically. Don't send multiple requests. Make sure to document all your potential violations, but don't admit too much is one of the don'ts. Document any potential violations and let them know about the ones that are most likely to be the problem. Document all your changes to your website. You should be doing this anyway as a part of your process. Prioritize those potential problems and make the appropriate changes to fix them. You need to be aware of the current climate and changes of the Google algorithm to really know what's going on. You need to know about the Penguin filter and the Panda filter and the penalties, and be succinct. They have to read lots of these. There's plenty of people submitting re-inclusion requests, so you need it to be as simple and concise as possible. And bounce it off a consultant. Make sure what you're doing, consultants do this all the time, so bounce it off a consultant, bounce it off a friend, ask a couple people if this looks legitimate, and make sure you're doing it the right way. The things you don't want to do is think that your AdWords spend will matter. They don't care how much you're spending on PPC. If you're spamming, that's not going to get you back in the index. Don't tell them all about all of your websites and all your domains. Don't blame someone else. You can throw your ad agency or your SEO consultant under the bus once or twice maybe, but if you're always blaming somebody else, they're going to know that you're a repeat offender. And as I mentioned, don't overshare more than you need to. List the potential problems, prioritize those, and if you need to discover some more at a later date, that's probably okay, but you don't need to share all of that all in one email. Be concise, be succinct, tell them the potential problems and the most likely problems. Tell them when the problem occurred. You need to think about the reason for the problems. Were there any recent changes, any recent downtime, maybe malware or other problems? So a couple sample requests. This is one that I did years ago, and I didn't include the link, but it's at Search Engine Watch in the forums there, and you can probably find it that way. To whom it may concern, I found my site's no longer in Google. I didn't realize that a program called Link Vault, or whatever program or whatever link scheme that you were doing, could cause issues. I fixed the problem. Let them know you fixed the problem. Thank you in advance for your time, etc., etc. Regards, Guilty Webmaster. Now I saw another re-inclusion request that was here, and I don't know that this is really a great one per se. It's an example. So the site went from 2,000 visitors in Google, dipped to 350 after a penalty. I haven't done anything as best I can tell. I think there's probably a reason. This is most likely a situation where it was an algorithmic filter and they lost traffic and they were doing things wrong. So they're probably not going to get back in with this re-inclusion request. The re-inclusion request is really when you did something wrong, you fixed the problem, somebody else was doing something, you fixed the problem, and then you get back into the search index. So like I said, know the do's and don'ts, know what to include, and hopefully have a couple examples now of the type of sample request you want to send to Google and how to ask for reconsideration and when to ask for reconsideration. Here's a whole bunch more resources on the issue. There's a lot of information out there, but really what you need to do is not be a recidivist. Don't keep making the same mistakes and keep spamming Google. Know the difference between the penalties, filters, and bannings, when to do the reconsideration requests, and how and why, and then just send a good request and admit the things that you did wrong and come back and hopefully you'll get into the index. So be a little aggressive with those strategies. I hope and wish you nothing but the best and nothing but success in your reconsideration quest. And for those who haven't had them, I hope you never need to do them. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the future at Market Motive. Thanks a lot.